Yes! Went for a really big one there. Welcome. It's episode 49 of the Music Guy podcast. How y'all doing out there? Hope you had a wonderful Canadian Thanksgiving. My name's Al Rowe. I'm a music guy. I write songs, I sing, I play guitar, I make records, I teach, I stream. I learn songs for artists that I work with. And I'm broadcasting.
Do a good job at it.
Oh, thanks, man. I'm broadcasting from downtown Toronto here in Liberty Village. And coming at you all the way from Whitby, Ontario, is my friend and yours, co-host, songwriter, guitarist, composer, backup vocalist, professional, handsome musician at large, Mr. Michael
water.
Hebs.
Did you hear those slurping noises?
Sure did, buddy.
Fuck yeah.
Loud
Those are making it to the final edit.
Loud and clear. Yeah, we're leaving those in. How was your
Fuck
Thanksgiving?
It was good. It was just me, my mom, my dad, my brother. I guess because that's all there is,
Yeah.
We don't usually do a big thing. So what about you, man?
Stayed in. Yeah,
Good
stayed
boy.
in. Katie and I had
Don't be a bozo. Stay
ordered ordered a couple of festive specials from Swiss Chalet and
Ooh.
just chilled. I had a nice Zoom call with a bunch of my family was on it. My immediate family and then some extended family as well. There was probably about, I don't know, 10 to 15 people on the call. So it was nice to see people and chat and catch up a little bit. Obviously, a shame that we couldn't actually be together in person, but that's the way things are right now. So we're rolling with it.
Fuck yeah.
So today we wanted to look at do an in-depth deep dive of learning a song by ear and charting a song. So we've been asked this a number of times on the question of the week and Q&A episodes and stuff. It's like, how do you learn songs quickly? What's the process to do that? So we're gonna jump in and do that today, and we're actually gonna use a song that's our song of the week. So if you would like to have your song played on our show here, your original song played on our show, send it to musicguypodcast@gmail.com or get in touch with Mike or myself on social media. Submit your music, and we will consider it for airplay on the show here. And the song that we have this week is by an artist named Alessia Cole. The Agenda Boys and I were actually involved pretty heavily in producing and playing on this track. This is her new single. It's called All Good. And we're going to have a listen to it right
My favorite one yet.
now.
Looking in the mirror, trying to get it right. Your world just fell apart and you don't know why. It's all good. Broken like glass lying on the floor. So hard to put it back like it was before. It's all good. Sometimes there's nowhere to run, no place to hide. When it all goes wrong, you just gotta find that something right. There's a reason, there's a why now. Sometimes you don't see it till you slow down, and you can't let go when you're 10 feet off the ground. When it don't make sense, hard to understand, running out of hope, cause it hurts so bad. Well, your tear-stained shirt is gonna dry out. It's gonna be all good. It's all good. Holding up the walls when there's nothing left. You don't need to break, you just need a breath. It's all good. Oh, it ain't bent or straight, it ain't black or white. There's a little color between those lines. It's all good. Oh, there's a reason, there's a why now. Sometimes you don't see it till you slow down, and you can't let go when you're 10 feet off the ground.
All right, and that is the song "All Good" from Alessia Cole. Brand new
That's my
single.
favorite one yet.
It's dope, and yeah,
Love
it sounds
the
just great.
synth stuff.
We're super excited to be involved on that one, and that was actually, believe it or not, all recorded at home. That was when it was like real lockdown. Studios were closed, everything was closed. So
It sounded great.
yeah, man, it turned out really great.
You mean you didn't, go down to Nashville and record all those parts in a really expensive studio?
Didn't, not this time. Yeah.
Or what about LA? Maybe you went to LA.
No,
LA
didn't go to
recorded in a really
LA.
expensive studio.
No,
I mean,
didn't even go to Toronto, man. Like,
I know.
You know, we
that's
just-
the point I'm making. I love it.
we just did it from home because that's what we had to do, and I think it turned out really great. And Alessia sung the heck out of it. And she's just such a fantastic singer. I've had the pleasure of
Very consistent too.
playing in her band a bunch, and being involved in this record was a real treat. So thank you, Alessia, for having us as part of it, and thanks for letting us consider it for this show today. So
One thing that I fucked up is I did not write down anything for that. I was just jamming out the whole time.
Just loving it. That's okay.
So, I kind of think I have the gist of it though.
Yeah.
It's like 1-4, a bunch,
A bunch.
and then-
Yeah.
and then it goes like 6-5-4 into the chorus, and then I don't even know what the chorus is. It's probably 1-4. I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah.
That
That sounds about right.
We'll get on to it.
Yeah. So, we're gonna jump into the actual charting process of this tune, and we're gonna actually just chart it out right before your eyes here.
Yes, sir.
And in order to do that, let's first maybe just talk a little bit about the concept of, I guess, ear training and learning by ear, and then
Yeah.
maybe what our process is for actually going through and charting a song. So, talk to me a little bit about ear training, Mike. You've released a full video course on doing this stuff.
Which I have not promoted sufficiently. Therefore, I haven't really sold that many. But whatever, I'll get there eventually. But so with ear training, it's a big thing for me because it was kind of something that was covered at my high school, but it wasn't. We did ear training is essentially just training your ear to recognize certain things. Like if you're an audio engineer, it's some people talk about it for like training themselves to recognize like boosting and cutting certain frequencies. I haven't really done that, but for music, it's more so like, can I recognize notes? And not in the sense of like, can I hear a note and know what it is? Because that's a big thing. A lot of people are like, oh, well, you just hear it and you know what it is. And that's actually something called perfect pitch. And they say that can be trained, but I'm very skeptical of it. I've never really seen any hard evidence of it. What we're talking about is training something called relative pitch. So being able to hear a note and then understand where it fits in reference to something. So say, for instance, the thing that I say to all my students, and I said in the course a bunch, and it's kind of like 90% true and 10% a lie, is it's all just the major scale. So do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Like that's everything. So if you can hear which one of those notes it is, if it's do or re or whatever, then you're good, So say, for instance, if it's a minor song, the minor scale is just the major scale in a different order, but it's all the same notes and all that shit. So ear training is just training yourself to be able to hear something in relation to do, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm,
So,
absolutely.
I mean, there's a whole process. Like, you do well to look it up because it's very useful for musicians.
Yeah, and you're gonna be it does all just sort of start with that do re mi. And one of the hardest things that I find when I'm talking to students about this or teaching people about this is like how do you figure out where do is? I think
Yes,
students
how do you
have
teach
trouble like just identifying what is even the home chord or like the root chord of a song. Do you have any like tricks for that? I'm just kind of throwing that at you on the cuff
I
here.
literally don't. That
Yeah.
is the only thing that I have not been able to teach. I mean, you could, in theory, just go through a bunch of songs on a playlist and maybe like try to sing what the root is. I think singing is essential for this. Like if you're an instrumentalist and you don't sing, just for the purpose of ear training, then you're a loser and quit because you're not going to go very far. But it's such a hamper if you're just not willing to sing. Like you don't have to sing like, oh, I want to be a backup singer. If you have to, I think you have to be able to hum or try to sing to match pitches.
Yeah,
you can't match
we're
pitches.
singing for yourself, not singing for in front of people or for anybody else, right? I think most people can sort of do that. And yeah, you're right. That's definitely a big skill, is being able to vocalize what's happening. And working from there. So when we're talking about the actual process of learning the song, usually like we're taking like a full listen through without playing our instruments. That's sort of step one for me, anyways.
Yeah.
Is just to sort of get a feel for the song. Maybe I'm making little mental notes of what I think the progression is, or ooh, that section sounds a little bit weird, or just sort of picking up some of the maybe major things to look out for, and then just generally getting a feel for the structure of a song. Because I find if I dive in right away to start charting it, I will miss things like that because I'm too busy playing my instrument and trying to figure out what stuff is. So just a full listen through, and then when it comes to actually learning the harmony of the song, the chords, right? And for this one, we'll be looking at a few different approaches here, but I think mainly we're just trying to get the chords. We're going to try to construct like
low
a Nashville, low, quote unquote, low resolution, like Nashville style number chart of just what the harmony is. What are the chords in the song that if we had to play this tonight at a gig, sort of on the fly, we could refer to that chart and get through the song pretty comfortably. So when we're learning that harmony, we want to start with, paying attention to the bass line in the song, or like more specifically, the quote unquote root motion, which sort of means the lowest note in each chord. Now, bass players are going to move around a little bit. They might play some licks. They might play, going between 1 and 5, boom, boom, boom,
there you
boom,
go.
or whatever.
That's all it's permitted.
So, So, what we're really looking for is that core note. So ideally, if, the bass player's playing on an A chord, the lowest note in that A chord is going to be an A most of the time. So that's what we're really driving at. And that's a great starting point, especially if you're new to this, even to just sort of start jotting down, okay, I'm almost certain the lowest note is an A in this bar. Yeah. And then I'm almost certain it's a B in the next bar. And then forget about major, forget about minor, all that stuff, like what the chord actually is. Just start there. And then what I will do after that is look for the highest note in the chord that I can perceptively hear.
Now, is that a low resolution thing for you, or a higher resolution thing?
Higher resolution. This comes into play a little bit more if we're talking about like a jazz song, or like I just lifted a bunch of Christmas song arrangements yesterday, and like if you're trying to figure out more complex harmony, which we're not really going to get into today, then like minor 7, major 7, diminished, minor 7 flat 5, those kind of, or God forbid, like flat 9, sharp 9, like that's 5-note voicings, like forget it.
I can't even go there anymore.
Yeah, it's so
not that I ever really could.
It's so hard, right?
One thing that I was going to say about the bass is that people don't really know what bass sounds like sometimes. You know what I mean? Like they've heard a bass guitar, but in some situations, people are like, oh, man, that fucking electric guitar sounds so huge, and it's like, oh, it's actually pretty thin. It's the bass guitar that's making it sound huge. So it's like getting used to what bass sounds like, the low frequencies, like the full deep, because you don't even, if you're not listening on good headphones, not even good headphones, just headphones, or if you're listening, on shitty speakers or your laptop speakers, you're just not used to hearing that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm, that's true.
You need to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah,
just like that.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, make sure at the very least that you have some headphones that go over your ears, or some good noise canceling ones. But like the little Apple earbuds are not gonna kick it. It's gonna make it way harder to do this. That's a very good point. Yeah. And then once I've got the lowest note and the highest note, then I'll work on getting the middle notes going. And
Those are the
again,
hardest.
this is for more complex stuff, but
Yeah.
you know, even voicings of, you know, standard kind of 1-4-5 kind of chords. Sometimes, you know, that G, you know, they don't have a third fret on the B string.
Yeah.
You know, the B is open.
For instance.
Yeah, here we go. A little guitar action.
So there's
here.
like this G,
I couldn't hear
there's
that.
this G. You can't hear that?
No, maybe back away from the mic a little bit.
You'll hear it on the recording.
On the
right?
recording, it'll
on
come
the-
through. Yeah, that's true.
So we got this G, the first one. We have this G.
yeah.
We have this G. Like, this is a weird one. That's like barely any different than. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's so many different options. It's so annoying. Or this. It's like, ugh.
So you'll get used to sort of hearing those different voicings, is what you would call them, right? The different sets of notes, but
Yeah,
they're all sort of
yeah.
the same chord at their core, right? So you know that can be important sometimes because it's going to change the characteristic of the chord and the song. And some songs are really dependent on having that specific chord voicing. And if you really get deep into it, you might even find like I don't know why this song always comes to mind, but Head Over Boots by John Party. You know that tune, right? The country song.
For some reason, I just can't get behind them. But yes, I do know
Yeah.
that song.
So, I mean, I've had to play in the bars a bunch or whatever, but it's like, you know, it's G and D and C. It's all the like common chords, but early in the song, they're all played as bar chords. And if you don't,
Okay. Yeah.
and if you don't do them as bar chords, it's not going to sound like the record. So,
Yeah.
you know,
That's
becoming
like low resolution too. Like if
Yeah.
you miss that, it's like it's a different deal. That's a really good point.
yeah.
I
So,
like that.
you know, as you get better at this, you'll be like, all right, I know this is a G, but my G sounds different than the G that they're playing. And then you'll start experimenting and try to figure out what's different. And it's frustrating and it can be a bit of a grind, but, you know, you will get faster at it pretty rapidly, especially if you've got a little bit of music education background and you can utilize some of the shortcuts that we're about to talk about right now. And this is not like you need to go to school and get a degree kind of thing. This is like if you spend some time and do some research and watch some good YouTube videos or read some
Save yourself
articles
50
online,
grand.
you know, or do go to school, whatever you want to do. But like this is not information
do
that
it.
is super hard to come by, or even, you know, email one of us and ask us. But
There you go.
so, you know,
I'm down for that.
number one, especially if we're talking about pop and country, is going to be the Nashville numbers. And we've talked about this before on previous episodes, but this is essentially, you know, your do, re, mi scale, right? Your traditional major scale, but instead of do, re, mi, we're saying 1, 2, 3. So do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. 1, 2, 3, 4,
Yeah.
5, 6, 7,
I'm
1.
trying to find the episode that we
And-
did it on. Proceed.
Yeah, and so we're taking each one of those numbers or do re mi's or whatever, and extrapolating it into a chord. So, you know, if our number one note, if that's C, that's our home note, that's our tonic note, that's our root note, that's our tonic note. I already said that. Then you know you can build a chord on that by you know, if that's the first note, adding the third note to it, which would be C, D, E, and then adding the fifth note to it, which would be C, D, E, F, G. So if you play C, E, and G together, you get a C chord. You can apply that formula to each of the other notes of that C scale. So D, F, and
The
A
name
gives
of
you
the
a chord.
Episode as well is episode 3, Bare Bones Music Theory. The thing that
Okay.
you were talking about was, and
Yeah.
instead of going, you're going, and instead of, and that
Yeah.
gets you a chord. And if you repeat that, you get your
Yeah,
C chord. But yeah,
exactly. So I mean, this might be not new information for most listeners, or it might be new information for some. So definitely check out Nashville Numbers and sort of do a little bit of research and go back and listen to episode 3 if you want to get our deep dive on that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then extrapolating on that is sort of being familiar with common pop harmony. So
Yeah.
we're talking about the idea that most songs in pop rely heavily on chords 1, 4, and 5.
Sure.
Which in the key of, let's say, G, for example, would be G, C, and D, based on, G being 1, G, A, B, C being 4, G, A, B, C, D being 5, right? So you'll find that a lot of songs, when you go on, Ultimate Guitar or whatever, and you're learning, Brown Eyed Girl or whatever song you're learning, a lot of them have G, C, and D, maybe with a capo or whatever. You're gonna find those to be very common because
One thing is, oh, sorry. I thought you were done.
Go ahead.
The common pop harmony, I mean, when you get more advanced too, is you'll learn the common sort of, depending on the style, like chord exceptions, right? Because you were saying, off the first chord in major, minor, major, minor, and then this weird one. That's not it.
Yeah.
Diminished, and then major. One of the things that you'll see commonly, depending on the style of music, sometimes you see like a 2 major, if you're doing country, like,
Yes.
so this G, this 1, and then this 4, and then maybe like occasionally it'll go to 2 major.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that should be minor. That's major.
Yeah.
Should be that. You know what I mean? And just stuff like that. Like there are certain common chord exceptions. Like you really said you liked 5 minor.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's like a good change. Flat 7 major is a big one. So like, said I'm like Brown Eyed Girl, but it's different. That's flat 7. And that sounds fine. It sounds good.
Yeah. Right.
So just being aware that that's when you're more advanced. There are some exceptions. You can look into stuff like they call them at Humber subdominant minor chords. They're chords that are borrowed from the minor scale. So if this, has G major, A minor, B minor, C major, B major, E minor, F sharp diminished, and G in the key of G minor, they have a whole different set of chords. So it would be G minor, and then it'd be A diminished. I did minor 7 flat 5 for some reason, B flat major, and on and on and on. So say for instance, if I'm playing a song in the key of G major, I can borrow some of those. So say for instance, I can borrow
okay.
B flat major.
Oh, I didn't realize that's what that meant.
Yeah. You know what I mean? I fucked that up, but that chord right there sounds fine. So that's called subdominant minor. So that's a cool thing to look at.
So a little bit more advanced, but yeah, definitely. And then at a similarly advanced level, being aware of the cliches. If you're learning a jazz song or like an old Christmas tune or something with a little bit more complex harmony in it, and without getting into the nuts and bolts of how jazz harmony works, being aware of 3 major things, which are 2/5s, minor 2/5s, and then tritone substitutions, and these are all pretty high level. What should I say? Like theoretical, musical concepts and stuff. So maybe for a future episode, but if you're,
we'd have to have a jazz expert on.
Yeah, but just when I'm learning jazz tunes, I always try to remind myself, it's like, if I can't figure out what the next chord is, it's like, okay, well, it's usually one of these 3 things. And so those are really good tools to utilize.
Those are things to look into.
If you have jazz background and you're trying to chart out some stuff, it's just remember that those 3 kind of seem to drive the bus a lot in jazz music. So anyways, we're not gonna dive into those because it gets too crazy. So one more quick thing before we jump into the actual tune here. And what style of charting do you use? Are you just a pen and paper guy?
I used to be pen and paper, and then I'd take a photo, and if I wanted to be really fancy, I'd scan it and then put it on like a software, which we're going to mention in a second.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the name of the software, so I'll be useless for that. But now I kind of do. I have a system that I do on Google Docs, and so for melodies, I write numbers, like literal numbers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And for chords, I write Roman numerals because that's kind of the classical way. You know, 1 is an I capital. One of the things that I find handy with melodies as well too is if, say, for instance, it starts on 5 and then it goes up to 8 or 1. This is something that only theory people really care about. I write -5. So that's -5. That's 1. That's 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh, interesting.
And then that way I know direction because 5 could be this, or this.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So stuff like that.
That's clever.
I do some wacky things.
Yeah.
I'll actually write out like music and screenshot, like music in Sibelius and screenshot it and then copy and paste it into the thing if it's something really wacky for timing or something that I just need to remember.
Yeah, I used to do things by hand, and I do most of my charts as numbers, natural numbers. Very, very rarely I'll do chord symbols if it's really, really complex stuff.
Yeah.
And but you know, recently Mark turned me on to this app called OneChart for iPad. So I'll just show so people can see. This is sort of what a OneChart file looks like. Here it is. Here.
Grab it to the listeners too.
And yeah, so this allows you to use numbers or letters. You can actually flip between. And the only thing is, like, you can't do it right on your PC, which I would love, but so I have to do it on my iPad. But it's not the end of the world.
Really? You can't do it on your PC?
No, not
Is
with
it
this
only
software.
because it's Mac?
Yeah, it might
is
be like a Mac thing, or it might just be I don't know, an iPad thing. But yeah,
That's
you
fucking
know,
bullshit.
you can do all detailed chord symbols, and you can even notate above them like a rhythmic figure and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's just real neat and tidy. You can send it around to other people. So here's an example of the one with actual chord letter symbols. It's the same chart, but I flipped it to letters. So anyhow, that's what I've been doing lately, and it's worked quite well. So let's do you want to jump into the tune here and
I'm gonna
learn
put my
the first
guitar
little
down
bit?
just so I don't fiddle. One of the things I can't really like the quality of it is kind of diminished over mine, so I can't hear like the nitty gritty of stuff. I don't think.
Okay.
Like there was a thing that came in for Will in the second verse, and I was like, I kind of hear, but it doesn't matter. Like let's just do like a low resolution,
Yeah.
get through it, and then see what we come to.
Absolutely.
What's this called and what key is it in?
Well, let's figure out what key it's in. The song is called All Good. And let's do our best to hold on. I'm going to grab my guitar here.
Fuck yeah, join the team.
Yeah. Let's do our best to actually like describe how we figure out what
Yep.
you know,
Well, could you
note
play a
number
second
one.
of it, and then
Yes.
what I'll do is I'm gonna sing the root because that's what I do.
Okay. All right, here it comes.
Mhm.
Looking in the mirror, trying to get
Right. Do that one more time.
Yeah. Duh.
Right. So that's your root note. And it's hard to really describe. I mean, this song's kind of an easy one because it starts
I guess
on,
you're right.
you know, the one chord. It starts on do. But some songs don't, right? Like a lot of songs start on the 4 chord, and that can get a little bit confusing for folks. But
Yes. But one of the things that I said in my course, so it maybe will start on the 4 chord, but maybe it's going to end on the 1 chord.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So you check the end, and also too, you check the melody. What's the starting note of the melody or the last note of the melody? Generally, it's going to be the 1.
That's
one
great.
of them is going to be the 1.
Yep, that's all good. And then, I mean, even if you don't, yeah, no pun intended. Even if you don't know precisely what key the song is in, you can still go through it and start building root notes and say, this chord is this, I think. This chord is
Yes.
this chord is this. And then once you have them all together, they'll be like, oh, the whole thing is C, F, and G. Okay, cool. I guess it's in the key of C then. You know, even though they might
Yeah.
be out of order. Maybe it starts on F or something. But so we've got
cover this all in the
do was your note, right? So then
And I guessed and I got it right, which is so fucking rare.
guess
Because
what?
it's like I assumed there was no capo, so I'm just like, and it's a D, right?
Okay, yeah. So exactly. So you take that note and you play it on your instrument, or you try to find it on your instrument, right?
Yeah.
So there it is, and that's a D, right? So
Yeah.
now usually if we're talking about natural numbers and pop and stuff, like the one chord is gonna be a major chord. So that's the first place
Yeah.
you want to sort of start, and then play the song, play the chord along with it, and see if it works, right? So here's a bit of that intro again. And D major, sure enough, right? So we've got our intro is 2 bars long, right? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, ooh, 3, 4. That's 2 bars, right? So I'm gonna go over to my chart here that I'm creating. I'm gonna flip over to this on for the folks that are watching the video version of the podcast, right? So I've got my
minutes in
title,
already.
I've got my key written down here as D, and I'm gonna go to the left of the page here. If you're doing it on Google Docs, which is what I did for years until I got this chart app, type intro and tab over, and I'm gonna say it's a 1 chord for a bar. I'm gonna tab to the next, and give it a little bit more space, and it's a 1 chord for another bar. So every one of these numbers represents a full bar of music, which for most songs means 4 beats. Okay, and then we can hear the vocals come in just after that. So I'm going to type V1 for verse 1, and we're going to figure out what's going on in verse 1. Are you ready, Mike?
I'm so ready.
Here comes verse 1 for you, buddy.
Looking in the mirror, trying to get it right. Your world just fell apart and you don't know why. It's all good. Broken like glass lying on the floor. So hard to put it back like it was before. It's all good.
So starting with just singing that root note again. What do you come up with? I can't hear you.
Really?
Oh, there you are. You're back.
Then 1 and 4, right?
1 and 4, right? So you would play those, try to find those on the instrument, right? So we're still doing the 1, which is D. So G,
that sound,
right?
too.
For those guitar players out there. So we got our D chord, and we switch to our G chord. And again, if we're familiar with the natural numbers, we know that the 4 chord, D, E, F sharp, G, is always major, or most often
We'll
major.
include a list of the chord. I call it the chord scale in the episode. And you know what I
Okay,
mean? Like 1
yeah.
major, 2 minor, 3 minor, all that bullshit.
Totally. Let's link to that in the show notes. Yeah. So that's gonna give you that G. So again, you just play along with the record, make sure it works, right? Looking in the mirror, trying to get it right. World just fell apart and I don't know why. It's all good. 2, 3, 4, 2, 3. Right. So back we go to the chart, and we're gonna say a bar of 1 chord, a bar of the 1 chord again, then a bar of the 4 chord, and a bar of the 4 chord.
And it
again.
repeats twice.
And it happens again, right? So
Yeah.
I'll just type it again here, or you could, put a repeat symbol or whatever. And we're moving in. Actually, we should just stop real quick and just talk about some of the little things you might learn if you're going for a more high resolution sort of thing,
Picked
right?
Up, and you may not hear this out at the beginning. He starts on that sort of
Upper,
did that
up rake kind of thing.
yeah,
Yeah,
and it's a sus2 instead of
right.
Has done that on a few songs before. And if I were writing a chart, since I know Will's playing, I'd write that song. I'd be like, oh, it starts with the horseshoe rake, which is just from another song that he did with another artist.
Right.
Uh,
So and just to so the listeners can hear for context, right? So here's the very, very beginning of the song. And we're talking about that first guitar hit there, that right? Here it is.
Yeah.
So this is where learning the bottom note first, which we already did, and then the top note second. If we play that D, that doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
That's not the
Yeah.
same, right? As if you actually listen really carefully, it actually starts with an open E from the guitar. So
Yeah.
we're actually playing a D, like Mike said, sus2 with no middle finger on the high string. And that actually gives. So these are the things that you know, medium resolution, I guess I would say, is like, you know.
Drop D, is he doing like he might be, you know what I mean? With that low D, I don't know.
I can't remember if, that's a little harder to hear if he's dropped the D. Probably did.
Yeah.
That's his style.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one
Will's
other.
dropping those D's all over the place.
Yeah. And one other thing that's worth noting is there's an acoustic part in there that's kind of going.
Yes.
That's sort of the rhythm driver. And when it goes to the
And then
G, it actually hangs on to that D shape. And we've actually got what you would call a G sus2 or a 4 sus2. So
It holds onto the D shape at the same time. So like
yeah.
that. Ooh, I love that chord.
Yeah. So anyways, these are just sort of extra credit sort of things, or like
Well, and also too, you were saying as well, the lead's going. One thing to mention though as well too is you need to consider what you are. Are you the acoustic player and there's only an acoustic player? Then you kind of, you know, need to cover more kind of what the bass is doing. Or if you're the only electric guitar player and there's an acoustic player, then maybe are you going to do, or are you going to do, you know what I mean? So these are all things to consider.
And then there are some like little acoustic licks going on and stuff. So those are things where if you're, you know, the main player for, you know, Alessia's band, like you're going to need to learn those licks note for note, right? But if, you know, All Good is, you know, the -- 1 song on country radio or whatever, and you're covering it in the bar and you've never heard it before in the gigs tonight, it's like you're not going to be you know,
And also,
learning
too,
every
like-
little lick like that, right? So that's
the
sort of
thing.
the
Every
different.
little lick I feel like is more of a artist thing. You know, like
Yes.
if you're doing a cover gig and it's like a high level cover gig, but learning 100% on a high level cover gig is just not practical unless you
Yeah.
have the time.
Most of the time, yeah. But you do the best you can, right? And as you get better at lifting these songs, you'll get better at you know, gathering more information more quickly. So let's move on to the pre-chorus here. And let me just skip ahead to it.
All goes wrong
Okay,
when
sorry.
it all
So here's the end of the verse, and Mike, you're gonna sing us some root notes once after you get through this. Here it goes.
Sometimes there's nowhere to run, no place to hide. When it all goes wrong, you just gotta find that something right. There's a
Okay, so one thing as well too, they go off on something. So I hear and it goes that breath in was when they
Yeah, a little
kind
little
of, yeah.
suck out kind of thing. Yeah. So again, you would look for those notes on your instrument. So ooh, B, right? A, G. So if we're talking about the key of D, 6, 5, 4, and the 4 goes for 2 bars. And then again, with our Nashville numbers, we know that 6 is always the minor, B minor, 5, A major, G is the 4. So so let's update our chart here. I'll just flip again over to that window. Here it is. So we got 6 for a bar, 5 for a bar, 4 for 2 bars, and then like Mike said, maybe you make a little note here. I would just say like suck out on 4 or something, right? or maybe just out so that it fits.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Out on 4 or something, so that I remember to do that, because you're going to sound a little bit silly if you're still playing and everybody else has stopped their
A
sound.
lot bit silly.
Yeah,
I'd say that's a low resolution thing
that's
too.
something
Like,
you should always catch. Yeah. Oh yeah, big time. Yeah. So and then again, it's like if you're listening to the in between notes, you're going to notice that 5 chord is a sus. So you've got
Sure.
because
I didn't get that.
there's a little acoustic, and see if you can catch this, people listening at home. See if you can catch this acoustic arpeggio sort of boo doo 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 little part that's happening in this section. See if you can catch this.
When it all sometimes there's nowhere to run, no place to hide. When it all
Hard to
goes
hear.
wrong, you just got
Boo doo doo doo.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yeah, sure.
right? So it
Yeah.
actually is a 5 sus. So I would just on the chart just write 5 sus, and so
And also too, you choose what you're playing. If there's 2 acoustic guitars, you're doing like a trio gig, or the artist is playing chords and you fill in the stuff. You have to figure out how to fill that space.
let's have a look at
If
the
you're both
chorus.
just drumming away your fucking dinguses.
That's right. Okay, here comes the chorus. Here comes the chorus.
gotta find that something right. There's a reason, there's a why now. Sometimes you don't see it till you slow down, and you can't let go when you're 10 feet off the ground. When it don't make sense, hard to understand, running out of hope, cause it hurts so bad. Well, your tear-stained shirt is gonna dry out. It's gonna be all good. It's all good. Hold
What do you got?
So I just have 1 and 4 there, but there's some stuff with the acoustic I couldn't really hear too well, just because of like the quality of it. But there's like some upper stuff, like stuff on top, like I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be. It depends on what your role is in the band, whether it's high or low resolution stuff. But it's just 1 and 4. It's pretty
Yep.
much the same as the verse.
Same as the
but-
exactly. So again, ooh is your first note for 2 bars, and then ooh, right? And so
Yeah.
you
yeah.
extrapolate those out to be D and G, and make chords out of them.
I
As
think
you're going
this
along.
intends, so any mistakes are just going to be right there. And I'm going to upload this, and I'm going to scan this, and this is going to be in the show notes, my shitty chart.
Yeah. And so just flip back to the chart window here. So now we filled in the chorus to be so there's a reason, there's a why now. Sometimes you don't see it till you slow down. Can't let go when you're 10 feet off the ground. When it don't make sense, hard to understand, running out of hope, cause it hurts so bad. The tear-stained shirt is gonna dry out. 2, 3, it's gonna be all. And then I guess that all good part, still just 1/4. We could add that onto the chorus, or we could make it its own section. I might call it like a re-intro.
Yeah. Many people have different names for this. I just call it like a pre-verse. Some people would say post-chorus.
Post, that all works. Yeah, absolutely. And then in the interest of saving time, we're not going to get to the rest of the tune here, but what you might do is if some of these sections repeat, like the next verse is going to be the same length as the first verse, I might just write here V2 and then
Yeah.
C2.
Do you ever use DCL fine or DSL fine?
I don't really. No.
I found it useful for text-based charts, like because you do see that, right? And like codas and stuff like that, but it can be almost detrimental because it's more thinking that you need to do, more that you can fuck up. But DCL fine, I might be mistaken because I never really formally learned it. I had to look it up afterwards. DCL fine is you go to the beginning and start again, if I'm not.
Yeah.
And then you finish on the fine.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. There's different and there's different like ways that people will describe that too. Like sometimes people will just say DS, which just means go to the start again.
Well,
But
DS, I
DS
believe
actually
means go through
doesn't.
the symbol.
Yeah,
Goes-
it
go
actually
to the
doesn't mean
segno.
that. Yeah, exactly.
But
So
people will maybe write it down as that because they're,
so
that's how they do it. But
it becomes a little bit of
Yeah.
a slang thing inside of songwriting.
and then
so.
there's like two a coda as well, and a coda is like a different section. But I use that sometimes. Most of the time, what I'll do, I'll actually just show you on the camera, is if I'm doing a text-based chart, I just draw a line, and that line is going to represent going back to wherever. So say, for instance, if I need to go back to the beginning, I don't draw a line on top. If I need to go back to a specific spot, I'll draw a line there. So
I
the
see.
idea is, it's like, oh, you just go back to here and read it through again.
Right.
You know?
Right. Section it off. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so that takes us through most of the tune.
Most of the song, yeah.
And in the interest of time, because I know you've got to get going to a thing. I hope this was helpful for anybody who's listening. Do we want to just cap it off with some of the
Crazy memorization techniques?
Yeah, I guess we've covered sort of resolution, low resolution, high resolution, just sort of figuring out what parts you're supposed to play. So yeah,
I mean,
hit us with your
on the acoustic versus full band versus one electric guitar. Like, you have to think about your role.
yes.
Because if it's a band that's like, if you're fucking playing an Eagles song and you're doing it like with one electric guitar and, maybe there's no acoustic guitar and just a drummer and a bassist, it's like you're going to do it a lot different than if you have two electric guitars and then you have a bassist and you have a singer who's playing acoustic and a drummer. You know what I mean? Like, or if you're playing a song that's supposed to have keys, you know what I mean? It's like you have to consider what parts you're learning and what's like integral. That's why communicating with musicians is so fucking important. Like emailing and being like, what are you doing? That's why you were talking about, don't you do a spreadsheet. When I subbed in for Al's thing, he gave me a fucking spreadsheet. And it's like, this is what your job is harmony wise, and this is what your job is part wise. And it's not like you have to do that for every gig. You make that fucking spreadsheet, like Devin was saying in her fucking podcast, and then it's there forever, and there's no excuses. There's no like, oh, well, shit, I learned this. It's like, well, did you read the fucking sheet?
Yeah, and that's sort of on the artist to disseminate that, especially on a gig where they've got a specific vision in mind. On a pickup gig, on a bar gig, it's like, if you're the lead guitar player, grab the most obvious lead stuff and take the solo. If you're the chords guy, play the chords. Assume that you're starting every song. Assume that you're playing every section. And, bass and drums are bass and drums and whatever. And then vocals is like, grab the harmonies you can grab and people will be excited about it. But so it's really just depends on the gig, of course. But
True that.
So what about these crazy memorization techniques you've developed?
Okay, so I want to leave you with this crazy bullshit. But so I was listening to a podcast. I think it's just called the How To Podcast. It's actually really handy. But he was talking about something, and I thought this was made up. I thought this was a Sherlock Holmes made up thing. It's called the Memory Palace. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
It's weird. So very quickly, just to sum it up, and I'm trying to figure out how to use it in music. But say, for instance, I need to remember a number. So say, for instance, give me like a fucking eight number, right? Like, so like, I don't know, whatever it is, like 1, 2, 8, 9, 10, all that bullshit. What you do is you visualize a room, and apparently it's always going to be the same thing. So you visualize it like your house, your childhood home. And then you think about things. So say if I need to remember the number 8, now numbers are kind of funny. Like, it should be more like words or things or people's names.
Okay.
But if I need to say, for instance, a new person that I've met, I meet somebody named Al, for instance, and it's not you. I can visualize in your mind palace, you shaking hands with him, or you patting him on the back. But I actually have to visualize you in my house. Particularly if you think of something weird, it helps even more. Like, I could visualize you like pouring milk on him or something like that. And I'm going to remember it because of that. And it's like, well, why would Al pour milk on this dude? Oh, because his fucking name is Al.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre. I swear I'm not crazy, but I'm trying to think of how to do this for music.
Yeah.
And so I had a few ideas. You know your password to your debit card or your credit card. Obviously, don't say it out.
Yeah.
It's probably just 1, 2, 3, 4.
2.
But the idea is, I was thinking maybe I could visualize what the feeling, because you want to associate it with a feeling or just associate it with something, what the feeling of pushing the numbers on like a debit thing are with a song. So say for instance for the song, I could visualize thinking, okay, it's 1 and then 4 and then it goes 6, which would be here, 5, 4.
Interesting.
And if you use, yeah, so but you could also use a memory palace. Say for instance, you could use 1 and then visualize 1 of something, like 1 egg or something like that. But I know it works for other stuff. Like I could memorize. I tried it with a license plate. I actually don't remember it anymore. But it worked for a few days. I was just like, I'll try it. But I remember it was like 4CF. I remember why. I remember it was 4CF and then it was some numbers that I don't remember. But this was like 4 weeks ago. You know what I mean? And I still remember those 3 letters and numbers. It's worth checking out.
I don't want
Memory Palace.
I don't want anybody to see inside my memory palace.
That's exactly it.
That's for my therapist.
I thought of some dark things. Apparently, the more sexually disturbing or just disturbing or graphic they are, the more chance you have of remembering them.
Right. That makes sense. So if you just come up with the weirdest, like little storyline you can in your head for this thing, you'll always sort of remember. That makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah.
Yep.
The one of the tricks that I try to use is just to like compare it to something I already know or I'm already familiar with.
Sure.
So like
that makes sense.
Like one of my friends' phone numbers was like the first 3 numbers just so happened to be like 1 number less than the first 3 numbers of my area code, And so I was just like, instead of trying to remember these numbers, I'll just remember that it's that. And that seems more complicated, but somehow
you're associating.
It right? sticks with you that way. So the association.
It's the same way that you can use this, for instance. If I tell you 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 8, 5, can you recite that to me like 5 minutes from now? I guarantee you not. But if I go ba da 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 da, it's the melody of the Star Wars. Right. Those are the degrees. So that's why ear training is so much handier than memorization by like frets or numbers. It's like, can you hear it?
Right.
You got it. You know what I mean? So it's cool. Anyways,
cool.
I do have to go, and I don't like you. So
all right.
I'm going to my physiotherapist that you recommended, Penny Lee.
Yeah.
She's the bomb.
Penny Lee. Shout out to Penny Lee Physiotherapy.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, have a great sesh, and I hope you get some stuff worked out in your body and in your memory palace.
All right. Bye, buddy.
See you, man.
Well, I mean, I'll just wait.
Oh, you're going to wait it out? All right. Yeah. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks, Alessia, for that wonderful song. All Good is available on Spotify and anywhere else that you consume music. Check it out. Give Alessia a like and a follow. Look out for her playing live whenever possible. Drive-in shows and the like. And if you want to support the show, tell your friends about it. Submit some songs, submit some questions, tell other folks to do the same. We hope all this stuff was helpful to you. You can find the podcast at musicguypodcast.com and on Instagram at musicguypodcast, and also on YouTube, where there's a video version of this show where you can sort of see us writing the chart and doing some guitar playing and the like. So we hope you'll check us out there. You can find me on social media at alromusic on any and all platforms except for TikTok, because screw that. And Mike is on Instagram at Bruno the Meek. Thank you so much for watching, guys. We'll see you all next week for another episode of the Music Guy Podcast. Bye for now.